Okay. Did you have time to look at Canvas? Did everybody see the material? Was there any problem? No. So you can familiarize yourself with the material. We will need that tomorrow. So tomorrow it will be, and also for the assignment you're doing later, it would be good if you know how to find the scale documentation, that you know how to find the questionnaires. And there is a diary, a PDF of the diary part, and there is a PDF of the intake questionnaire, the general questionnaire, which is part of the diary study. Now, if you have different study designs, an online questionnaire, it could be cross-sectional, it could be longitudinal, it could be a diary, it could be with multiple sources, self and peer. You have to ask yourself a couple of questions. So how can you match different sources of data? I already said that before. You have to ask yourself, has your sample access to the computer? We already discussed that. Louisa thought that her population doesn't have access to the computer, so she decided for a paper and pencil survey. But I have to say, for ESM, experience sampling, and diary studies, online questionnaires or an online form of data collection is, of course, preferable. The reason is that in the past, we did this diary study with paper pencil booklets. So actually, we handed out a little booklet to people which had questions, let's say 2 pages for day 1, and then it said day 2, day 3, day 4. And then we told people, please only fill in this first question on day 1, and then the second on day 2, and then the third on day 3. And then we got this back. But of course, we could never prove people actually filled this in on day 1, and we couldn't prove that people don't fill this in batches. And when these diary studies started, most people had paper and pencil studies, but now you hardly see that anymore in diary studies, because online data collection allows you to close the survey. So that was also what we did with our survey, for which you collected the data. The survey was sent out at 4. People were instructed to fill this in at the end of their work, and then it closed again, let's say at 9. So people did not have a chance to fill this in on the next day. So at least we can make sure people fill this in between 4 and 9 p.m. And also we have a timestamp. We know exactly when people fill this in. So this is a huge advantage if you're doing these kind of diary studies. And I know from diary studies which are done online, you have a lot of, you have some missing days and surveys. And when we did this with paper and pencil, we hardly had any missings. So let's say in hindsight, I don't think, so probably these people had done backfilling, because otherwise we should have had a lot of missings as well in the paper and pencil booklets, which we didn't have. So that's really a huge example, huge advantage if we're doing online studies with ESM. Of course, there is experience sampling. There are experience sampling apps. And a couple of years ago, I did my best to convince our faculty to buy such an app software. But it seemed that it wasn't very well thought through, and a lot of stuff went wrong. So actually, I went back to our old structure, which is doing Qualtrics surveys. And we have a very good situation that we have a great instrumentation department in which they use Soto to manage the diary questionnaire. So they developed a system which sends out the diary questionnaire at the days and at the time frames that we want it to be sent out. And it also has found a way to collect this data anonymously. Because in the past, I did Qualtrics surveys and I asked people to indicate their email address, or I logged the email address it was sent to, and then I used the email address to match the 5-day surveys, let's say. But then data collection wasn't anonymous. And you know European privacy law, and that's a big problem. We shouldn't do that. So I'm very happy that our instrumentation department found a way to distribute the surveys via email addresses, but the email address is never logged together with the data. And after the 5 days are over, the email addresses are automatically removed. And that's a huge advantage so that we can do these diary studies. Of course, online questionnaires also allow you to do branch testing, which means you can ask a question, and depending on the answer, they see other questions. But what I usually do is I ask people, was it a work day for you? Because if I'm interested in work experience, it doesn't make any sense to ask people about their daily job satisfaction if they didn't work. So I don't want this. So the first question I ask is always, was today an official work day for you? If they say yes, they see the rest of the questions. If they say no, I say thank you, and the questionnaire closes. And of course, a huge advantage, you don't have to enter any data by hand. So in the past, we had paper and pencil diary booklets, and it's an enormous amount of work to enter this by hand into SPSS. But it's doable. Okay, and
sorry to interrupt. There's a few questions in chat here about the attendance form. A few people kind of struggled with getting it inputted in time because I guess for some people it closed at 9 while others it closed at 10.
Okay, it should have closed at 9, but I will just extend it.
Okay, perfect.
Some people also succeed.
I would assume so, yeah.
Okay, let me log into Canvas and I will immediately extend it. Any more questions?
That was it for now out of chat at least, so thanks.
So I extended it, but please fill it in now because I will not leave it open for the whole day. So it should work now. If you're still having problems, post it in the chat. Okay. Okay, and then of course some people also do multi-level research, team research, where you assess a team leader and the team members, and of course then you again have to match all of this, and this is something you have to think about and consider. And also you need to know who of that team was the team leader and who were the followers. Now, some practical issues, if you want to collect data. They seem obvious, but I have seen in the past also that it doesn't always seem to be obvious to everybody. So make it as easy for people as possible to participate. Of course, you will probably, if you do online questionnaires, you will send out emails, you will post it on social media platforms, but you could also hang up advertisement, and maybe you could use a QR code for people to make it easy to find your website where they can log in, or the link on which they can log in. So it would be a link to a Qualtrics questionnaire, or it would be a link to the SOTO site, which is used to do the diary studies we do at Maastricht University. It should be good quality print or layout. If you do Qualtrics questionnaire, there's also the option to make sure it's smartphone friendly. So this has, of course, to do with the length of the items. So make them as short as possible without really changing the item. Sometimes it's possible because if every item starts with today at work and then I did this or that, or I felt, I sometimes just leave the today at work. I put it in the instruction, today at work, ... and then I can shorten the question, which makes it easier to read on a smartphone, on a tablet. I already said address concerns people might have to participate, anonymity, establish a personal relationship. That is really key. So I have seen people or master students collect a lot of data in a very short amount of time, and I have others seen struggling. Because this depends very much on the network you have. How many people do you know who work and who are eligible to participate in your study? but it also so people are successful if they manage to establish a personal relationship. So if you just send out an email to 200 people, you will not get a lot of responses, or maybe you get 30 within a day, and after that nothing happens. So you have to send friendly reminders. Maybe you send personal emails. Maybe it makes sense to address this person, not, hey friends, can you please participate in my study? But maybe if you send them individually and you approach everybody by their own name and you say, well, this is really important for me and for my research, but you can also contribute to learning more about workplace well-being. People have also called people on the phone or send private messages. So maybe you send out a mass email, but then maybe you follow up with a WhatsApp message or with a phone call. That really makes a difference. Sometimes it's also the little gifts. So what we have done in the past when we handed out paper pencil surveys, maybe just hand out a little tea bag with it. That doesn't cost a lot of money, but at least it's a token of appreciation. So maybe you have a nice cup of tea when filling in my questionnaire, something like that. It doesn't have to be something which costs a lot of money, but even such a little attention or gift could help. In the past, when we went, if you recruit people through organizations, maybe you have access to an organization, it's good if people see your face. So if you, I know it's a bit of a hassle with online, but maybe still some people go to a workplace, or maybe you manage to have a Zoom session. It helps if people see your face. Or otherwise, maybe include a picture of you in the email you send so that people know who they are doing this for. And of course, give feedback. You can offer feedback. In some studies, we do individual feedback, but that's also, you should have said that then in the ethical form. So this is something you have discussed, or you should discuss with your supervisor. But at least you can say, we give people feedback about the findings. So if you participate in our study, you will get a short, everybody will get a short, maybe your study is about recovery, you could offer a report on the best recovery strategies while working from home. Or if it's about work and well-being, you could also offer people to give them some insights into how to boost their well-being or how to preserve their well-being in times of working from home, stuff like that. I've also seen people doing a competition as incentive. Actually, that was done at our university when we had the last employee survey, and that was really cool to see. You know, we have different faculties. So what they did, they counted the number of surveys which were answered by people from different faculties. And then whenever they sent a reminder email, you could see how well your faculty was doing. And you could see how this really pushed them. Every faculty, they wanted to be the first, so the one sending in most of the questionnaires, and they really had an amazing response rate. So yeah, I think that was really creative and really helped. There was no money, no incentive involved, just this little competition between faculties. So no faculty wanted to be the last one with the poorest response rate. The response rate is also something I have to raise. If you read articles and you go to the method section, you will see that they report the response rate. The response rate is the amount of people who answered the survey from the amount of people you approached. So let's say if you, in the times we had paper and pencil surveys, it was relatively easy. So we could say, I handed out 250 questionnaires and I received 100 back. So then it's easy to calculate the response rate. But now we have online surveys, and that's difficult because you don't really know how many people you reached. But at least you should document how you approach people. So was it in person, with email, with social media sites? Did you contact an organization? That's something you should report. And at least you should do the best you can to indicate how many people you reached. So you should log the emails you sent. So if you say I sent 60 personal emails, and then I posted it on a social media site, so at least you can say I personally approached 150 people. And maybe these people forwarded my invitation email to more people. That's something I can't know. But I know I approached 150 people and 70 people took part in my research. So then you have at least something to report. Is there any question regarding that?
Yeah, sorry, question just popped up. Alexandria asked, do we also need to report the dropout rate if we are doing a diary study?
Yeah, that's the one thing is the response rate, but you're absolutely right. And we will also look at it when we analyze the data you collected. You will see there were people who started the intake, and then there were people who didn't even start with a diary. And then there were people who started with a diary and then who dropped out. And all of this should be reported. So let's say I usually say the response rate is, let's say I approached 200 people and 100 people started the intake survey. So that would be a response rate of 50%. But then you would report, yeah, but of those, only 50 started filling in the diary. So that is what you really report, so that everybody knows what your dropout rate was. More questions?
That's all from chat right now.
Okay. Now, I have a little breakout assignment for you. So yeah, I will randomly assign you to breakout rooms of 5 people. And yeah, maybe you can share with each other very quickly what's your research topic, but a one-sentence thing, so don't explain the whole theory behind it. What design did you choose? So diary, cross-section, longitudinal, experiment. Where are you with setting up your material? Maybe you can share that. Are there any takeaways from this presentation, or did you already check all the boxes? So did you already know about this and do this all? What are your hurdles and challenges? And then in your group, please also choose a presenter who then presents the gist, so the essence, the summary of what you discussed in your group to everybody later when we come back. And maybe, yeah, we can also see what are problems you're facing, and maybe we can see what we can do about it later when we come back. So I would say 20 minutes. I will put these questions into the chat so that you can still see them. And now I will assign you to breakout rooms. Or do you still have questions? No. Okay.